So hello and welcome to The Conversations. I'm Louise Hay from BeHealing.com, and today I've got George Dube from South Africa with me, and we're going to talk about a few misperceptions that people have about Africa and a little bit more about other things as well. So welcome, George. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you.
So I'll just give a bit of a backstory because we met probably online about 12 years ago now.
Probably 12,
yeah.
18, that was early 2000, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
On a discussion board where there's lots of us gathered together talking about kind of changes that we wanted in the world. And people from all over the world that kind of came together to have discussions. And then when I came to Africa to work for a charity in Uganda, afterwards I went to South Africa and we met there along with another friend from that. So that's how we know each other. And so we just caught up recently because of there's been localized flooding here. And there was a picture that came up on Facebook, which I shared because it was a picture of my town underwater. But I hadn't really noticed the comment that was on that from the person that took the photo, but you picked up on it straight away when you saw it. And that comment was something like, we should give this rain to Africa.
Yeah, the floods specifically, yeah.
Oh yeah, you should have some floods.
Yeah.
And so it just reminded me, and you of course, how many people have misconceptions about Africa and about the problems in Africa. And this perception that Africans are very needy and victims and we all need to help you out. And first thing is, there's this perception that you're in constant drought, because that's what we see on the news. We see when drought's there, we see all the, the deserts, the dry land, and people really struggling. So what are your views on that?
Yeah. Well, the reality is actually that Africa is not different from most of the places. There are times when we experience drought, there are times when we don't. But the perception out there, I think, is that there's always this persistent drought, this persistent hunger, and this persistent neediness. So in other words, we want charity all the time. We want handouts. Mm-hmm. And I pick that up a lot because I watch these international news agencies, CNN, Sky, and the projection is always negative. Mm-hmm. When they're showing Africa, either they're showing a kid that's sitting there hungry with flies in the mouth or animals and safari. That's what Africa is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But Africa, there's so much more to Africa. Yeah. And I've traveled quite a bit of Africa, and what I've picked up about Africans is they're quite a resilient people, one, very robust, and this whole attitude of neediness for me does not exist. I think people are quite industrial. They wanna do things for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think most of this perception that if we give charity to Africa because they need it, Africa will be all right. It's actually frowned upon here by Africans, interestingly.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I had the same perception, and that's why I went to work in Africa, because I thought that I could help out. And so I went along to Uganda thinking that I had something to offer. And I came away quite ashamed of myself, wondering how arrogant I'd been to think that I knew better and had better than the Africans had. Because what I actually found was, first of all, that there was plenty of rain. And in fact, a very similar climate to here. In the wet season, you get a lot of rain for maybe 1, 2, 3 days, and then it'll be dry for 2 weeks or whatever. So very similar to this area, and plenty of food. Everyone growing their own food, plenty of food, green, lush. In fact, I had the similar kind of perception about Australia as well, for the same reasons. Before I moved here, when I first came here, I expected it to be red, dry, and that's what I'd seen on the news.
It's quite green.
Yeah, green. Around the outside, it's green anyway. Not so much in the centre. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I didn't see hunger, and I didn't see drought. I didn't see all the things that are portrayed on the news. What I saw was people living very differently than I am used to, or was used to at the time. And that was kind of shocking at first, and a little bit scary as well because it was so different and so new to me.
Yeah.
But once I got to know the people there, and once I started living with them like that, then I got to see just the benefits of it, the benefits of their lifestyle and the communities, and talking to the people and then telling me what they really want, and which at the time was to have chemicals to put on their land so that they could grow even more food, so they could have extra to get money to be able to travel, because they wanted to travel like I was traveling. And telling them, really, you don't want to put chemicals on your land. Yes, we've done it, and yes, it gave us more money, but it's caused us way more problems with health and with the land now, and really you don't want to do that. And there's similar things like that, it's just, we didn't have anything to teach them apart from saying, don't do what we did. Don't do what we did, You're better off going your own way and completely disregarding all the mistakes that we've made.
Yes.
And I actually got more myself from staying there than I felt that I gave to them, because it just changed my perception of myself completely, and the society and the way that we were living, as I didn't see it as our way of life being better anymore, because I saw so much benefit, especially in the communities there. The communities were amazing. The way that they all help each other and do everything together. And far from seeing hunger, I saw lots of generosity. And so, there would be a man that has lots of fruit, and he'd have it on his head, riding his bike, to go and take it to the road to sell it. And along the way, he would be throwing us pieces of fruit and throwing people on the road pieces of fruit, the children especially. And so lots of generosity. And as you say, when we tried to give, they didn't want handouts. They didn't want us to give them things. They wanted to, do it themselves, because, I can see clearly that this thinking that someone can't look after themselves and you need to go over and look after them just isn't true.
Yes.
It just isn't true.
It's not. No. Mm-hmm. You actually bring up something very interesting. I think in terms of hunger and poverty, I think they're two different things.
Okay.
Sometimes you get, for me, poverty is more a mind thing as opposed to a physical thing.
Yeah.
Hunger is a physical thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's no rain, there's no food. Yeah, it happens sometimes, and people scramble because, we are in a continent that really relies on the food that we grow.
Yeah.
But in a situation where there's hunger, doesn't necessarily mean there's poverty, because people can share the little that they have. For me, that's a sense of community. That's saying we will survive. Poverty is a different thing that is actually destructive, in that you feel helpless.
Yeah.
People that take charity, that's poverty for me, and I don't think that exists. And what you bring up that is quite interesting is you were saying to these guys, don't do this to the land and put chemicals, because we have done it before. And it brings up something very interesting for me, because I think what the continent needs, to some degree, are skills.
Yeah.
If you impart skills and knowledge and say, guys, you can do this, but there's certain ways that you can also look at this another angle. That's where skills come in. And I think for me, that's what the continent needs more than handouts and charity. Because I tell you, I think Africa has been getting charity since probably the 60s. And if you look at most governments that have actually received charity, nothing has actually happened. Most of the money has actually ended up in the pockets of the leaders, their cronies, everybody else. And people don't benefit, because it's just money that's coming in. Money that you don't work for, you lose very easily. I think there's a statistic in the statistics of the lotto. I think worldwide, most people that win the lotto, within 5 years they lose their money, because they just didn't earn it. You get it, you don't know how to use it. It just came, and you lose the money. And for me, it's the same thing for me. You work for something, you understand it, and you can pass it on to the next generations. And I think that's how things grow, basically.
Yeah. And I think that whole handout thing, the charity thing of giving handouts, it takes away the self-confidence too. It's, it's, as I said, it's like saying, you can't look after yourself. We need to come over. Everyone else needs to come over to Africa and sort you out because you can't look after yourselves. And it's just not true.
But then what happens? See, if sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Like if I come to you and I give you money, we are not equal anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look down upon you and say you depend on me. So basically, I am better than you. And for me, that's the most destructive concept that is actually ever visited, mankind. The moment you feel you're better than someone else, you're gonna destroy that person.
Yeah.
You don't respect what they do, even if there are certain things that you might actually learn from them. You're gonna disregard it because already, just by handing out, there's that imbalance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I think it still exists, by the way, because the perception is still out there, and perception is reality, as you know.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what's driving this perception? It's just the news, isn't it? It's what's in the media that's portrayed.
I think you see that a lot. I mean, I was looking at this Oscar Pistorius story when they were reporting it on CNN and Sky. They were getting basic things wrong. I mean, saying that Oscar lives on a farm, the guy does not live on a farm. He lives on an estate, very expensive, like seriously, for rich people, for wealthy people. And all the things that they were saying, you pick up and you actually laugh to say, guys, where are they getting these facts from? And it carries on. And it's a small thing with this Oscar thing, but of course it carries on everywhere. And that's the news that goes to people. And when you talk to people, the perception they get is like, Africa, it's because of what they see. They are being fed that information, because if I want to learn about Australia or whatever, most people just pick it up from the news, that's just the way it works. And if you're picking up that negativity, that's what you have. And I don't necessarily blame people. I think for me, it's just the way the system and the way they've packaged the news to sell the news. That for me, that's where things need to be looked at.
And so the only way we can change these perceptions is just by doing this, is by talking about it and by letting people know that it's just not true. And and especially the hunger thing as well. Like, I know what you mean about when you've got weather systems like we have, South Africa or anywhere in Africa and here in Australia too, there are times where the local food dries up a bit. We've had a month of storms, really bad storms here, and going to the farmers market with all the local organic growers there yesterday, and they haven't got very much, and they said they're not going to have very much food for a few weeks until we can recover, their land recovers from this. And from all these storms that we've had over the last month. And so we experienced the same thing. But from what I saw in Uganda is like each family live on their land and their house or huts are on that land, and the whole extended family live together, and they grow all of their own food on there. There aren't the supermarkets to go to and buy the food from, and so they have to provide from themselves. So that's really the only difference. But what I've seen on a worldwide level is that those that want to control food in the world are using this, there's so much hunger in the world and we need to fix it, as a reason to control food and to do the things that they're doing to the food chain and everything. And so the reasons, of course, they've picked that reason because it's a common perception and people will believe it. People will believe that there's just massive hunger in the world. And it's just not true.
Yeah, because what actually happens, which is quite interesting, is you look at a country like South Africa, the best quality food is actually exported. Our best wines are not sold here in South Africa. For me, that's the industry, because a farmer somewhere in the Cape is growing whatever they're growing, not to feed the local market, but to make money. So you find that most of the quality food actually ends up in Europe, in the States, in Italy, all those places, and we actually end up with second-grade food here because it's a business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And on a larger scale, then what happens is because we kind of depending on that money as well. It's exports. We we sell and you know, money comes in and God knows whatever happens to it. But I think that's also the imbalance that needs to be changed, also from a local point of view. And we have to look at ourselves and say, oh, guys, who comes first?
Yeah.
Is it us or is it money? You know, as long as the system remains the way it is, and I have nothing against the system, it is what it is. But I think certain priorities have to change. And I don't see, honestly, Clay, I really do not see that a continent like Africa can actually have hunger. I mean, this country, from even the soil, it's so rich.
Yeah.
You know, everywhere you go in Africa, you can literally grow anything and it will grow. How then can we have poverty and hunger here?
Yeah.
How is that possible? You know, and people are capable of actually growing stuff. Why is that happening? It goes back to what you say. It's the cartels that are controlling everything. So you find that a subsistence farmer somewhere in the rural area, they're pushed and they don't have seed to grow, all those things. But it's not that the area around them cannot grow food. It can. They don't have access to it. That becomes a problem for me. It's then the way that we solve it, and we look at the social aspect of it. And obviously the economist comes in, but you know, if you feed people, you know, everybody's fed and everybody's happy, I can tell you chances are you start progressing as a people.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I don't see any other reason why not. You know, so that's how I'm seeing things, because we as Africans as well have a lot to do in terms of actually, yes, redistribution of wealth, but also I think from a food security point of view. If we're organized enough, we've got the know-how and the skills, I think we can feed not just Africa, we can actually feed everyone. What we're seeing, perhaps people always say it's a legacy of colonialism, but at some point you have to get out and say, guys, this is where we were. We need to look at how we're going to move forward, and going forward requires to say, okay, this is what I'm doing right. Is there anything else that I'm doing right? And there's nothing wrong in actually importing some of best practices being done elsewhere. So you find that maybe the Western culture does this very well. You take that. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, the Eastern culture does this very well. You take that, you integrate that. What then happens? It's progress.
Yeah.
That's how actually progress comes about in any way. In any case, you know, you always take the best of whatever exists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now in Australia, there's very much a drive to buy locally now, especially the foods that can be grown locally, and any products that are made locally. Everyone has this. We have these special labels to know whether it's made in Australia, and people really want to buy locally to stop that problem that you were saying about everything being exported, and us getting things in that can be made here, you know, just to make sure that we're getting the best of what we have to offer here, and as you say, bringing the rest in. Do you have the same thing in Africa now? Are you? Yeah.
In South Africa, they've got this thing, Proudly South African, where they put all the products that are made in South Africa, they've got a certain label. So you can actually recognize them, and it's become a huge campaign, eh?
Yeah.
In terms of buying local, and I must say that there's been growing support in buying South African. You know, most of the products that have got that stamp, you know, you can see people are proud whenever, like even if when I go into the supermarket, you know, I see two products. One is South African, one isn't. I'll definitely buy South African one.
Yeah.
But it's a campaign that they've been sustaining and for a couple of years now. So almost, I think, probably 5-6 years since this Proudly South African campaign started, and I think it's working well. You know, once you have that, also it helps grow the economy.
Yeah.
Because everything circulates. You know that you're creating demand, you're creating a market. People are going to buy. It's not just about looking at the foreign imports as quality as opposed to, you know, the local stuff.
Yeah. I'm very much a believer in everyone doing what they do best, what they're really passionate about, and what they do best, no matter where they are, and everyone having access to those products, those services, whatever other people are doing best. You know, everyone allowing everyone else to do what they do best and sharing what we all have to offer.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the health problems in Africa? Because that's something else that's focused on in the news for the rest of the world.
I think there are challenges in that area, really. It actually differs from place to place. I think there's still some diseases that are preventable that are still probably claiming lives in Africa. Kids, you go to certain parts of Africa, you still get, obviously malaria. It's a geographical thing. You're always going to get it because but certain things are preventable, and I think we could actually be a lot further than we are at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I don't see it happening, especially when you really go deep into the continent, where the lifespan is actually coming down. I look at Zimbabwe, where I come from. Mm-hmm. Life expectancy is actually dropping there.
Wow.
Because it is dropping because the way obviously there are problems there with economically they invaded farms and it changed a lot of things, so they can't up to now invest a substantial amount into healthcare. Mm-hmm. So the result is that people don't get medicine, good quality medicine, and they go into hospitals. It's just they get like penicillin or Panadol. It's a problem, and what then happens is that you get your skilled people leaving the country, and mostly going overseas or where there's money, or where there's facilities, or where there's less stress.
Yeah, where they can actually do the job. Yeah, where they've got the tools to do the job.
Yeah. The health part, Claire, I have to, it's a huge challenge. In certain countries, not so much. You see, it's like I look at South Africa compared to other African countries. There's a vast difference.
Yeah.
I think here you still get access to the best medicine, the best hospitals, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. As you go up the continent, it becomes very different. But also the other thing is that they're trying to introduce the national health care here.
Okay.
Because what tends to happen is that, the guys with money, they have access to private healthcare.
Yeah.
So they get the best doctors, the best hospitals. And, if you don't have medical aid, say you've been involved in an accident, they just stabilize you and they send you somewhere to some public hospital somewhere where the healthcare system is not very good.
Mm-hmm. So I think basic level of care given.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to integrate that here in South Africa. There's been a lot of fighting and disagreement because the private healthcare, they don't really want it. Mm-hmm. And the government is saying, we need to integrate and make sure that everybody gets quality healthcare. Yeah. So they've actually rolled it out in I think 1 or 2 provinces at the moment because it's quite a big thing. It's going to take some time to really roll out fully. Yeah. I don't know exactly how, in terms of progress, how far they've gone with it. But I know that they've rolled it out in 2 different provinces so far. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You need everybody having access to healthcare, like at least good healthcare. Yeah. Without that, it's for kids, for mothers, it's a huge problem, So we'll see how it pans out.
And so why do you think Africa is kind of behind in the healthcare? Is it the government's not doing something that's causing the problem?
Yeah, most of it, in a way, it's a lot of historical baggage as well. I think from a development point of view, really, skills and education and all those things. I think we have a lot of catching up to do. Mm-hmm. You can see the hunger is there to learn and to do stuff, but I think we need to plow in a lot of money into for me, education is what's going to solve this. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take some time, and I don't think governments actually invested enough, especially governments that took over directly from straight after colonialism and the guys that took over.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were just interested in fattening their pockets. Suddenly they are in government. Suddenly they've got access to this money that they never had before. Suddenly it's exciting. And what do? They loot money.
Don't
So
know how to manage it because they're not used to it.
they don't,
Yeah.
exactly. They don't know how to manage it. Suddenly, for me, that's been the biggest problem. But you begin to see it now. People are challenging governments more. People are speaking out more, and they're saying, no, this is not the way to do it. And I think also now you've got social media, you've got Facebook. You cannot censor stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go stop a newspaper, but it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's everywhere. Email everywhere is going. So you can't really stop. And I think people are becoming vocal. They're feeling empowered, and a lot of stuff that might not have come out, it's coming out. And I think for me that's a positive change.
Yeah.
But I still maintain, Claire, that I think it's education that's needed. The more you educate your people, the better your quality of life and the better everything, basically.
And from a lot of the people that I met in Uganda and in South Africa too, were really, really keen on getting out and educating themselves, traveling. So many people. If there was one need in Africa that was said to me, more often than anything else, it was they want to travel, they want to learn, they want to travel. And that would just make the difference there, because you've got the education sorted out. If everyone can just travel, if everyone just has the same access to all of the opportunities that are available in the rest of the world.
I think you're seeing that a lot. You're actually seeing that a lot. I think there's a lot of people travel, man. There's a lot of traveling going on. There's a lot of exposure, and people are beginning to see things out there. Obviously, again, as I say, the social media, the boundaries are blurred. I'm talking to you in Australia right now. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have thought this would happen without this is practically for free that we're talking, and so things are changing, and I think those lines are getting blurred. So with time, I think there's going to be an integration of things, and there's going to be progress. That's why I'm an advocate of people traveling, not just one way, say Africans going to see, but also the world coming to see what Africa is really like.
Definitely.
Because it's not what they see on TV. Definitely not. No. It's just a small part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned so much when I was there, and the positive things that I got from Africans was this sense of community. It's just so different than anything that I've experienced in other countries that I've lived in. The way that everyone groups together in their communities and does everything together. It's like there's joint decisions made in the communities, and I just haven't seen that elsewhere. People treat each other as equals there. There's not that hierarchy that you find in other countries. What I found too was that I really enjoyed the way that Africans were so expressive with their emotions in particular, and so especially the grieving process. To me, it taught me so much about what we could do better in our cultures, because I was growing up then in the UK where it's all very suppressed. Emotions are suppressed, Even the grief process, it's really suppressed. You don't let people know that you're upset. Try and, keep it to yourself, which is really unhealthy. In Australia, it's more open than that, but a lot of talking about emotions, rather than it being okay to scream and shout if you're going through something. And what I saw in Africa was just this complete openness and acceptance of everyone about emotional states.
Yeah, it's the way I grew up, and because I grew up with it. It's normal to me, When there's a funeral, people read. You're right. People express themselves. They almost do a vigil. Everybody gets together for 3 days, and they cry, they laugh, they joke. But it's like they talk about the person that's just died, but it's open.
Yeah.
And people are allowed to cry as much as they want to. They can scream, and people do scream. Mostly women.
Yeah. But
that's okay. That's okay. By the end of that process, it's not that the grieving process is done, but people have expressed themselves. People have come out, and it's this crying and stuff like so. So it happens that it's my wife is at work, so she wants to find out what's going on.
Okay.
Am I? Oh, sorry. yeah, so it's basically that, and I think it just comes down to, openness, and I think that sense of community comes down to the fact that, it's a cultural thing that started from way back, yeah, and it becomes part of society, and I don't see the difference when you tell me that, like there, like in the UK or Europe or whatever, you guys is suppressed, your emotions are suppressed. I don't see that. To me, it's like, if I'm allowed to scream as much as I want, and it kind of helps me bring out those emotions.
Yeah.
It's just a way of life. I think it's just the way the societies are set up here. And also, I think the sense of community comes from the fact that, everything was about sharing way back. And because of, I think, the weather patterns that we have, where you don't know, you could actually go for 2 years without rain, and food is not growing. In that situation, you have to be a community for you to survive.
Yeah.
Because, if you're a community, you go hunting or whatever you grow, you share whatever little that you have. And so in a way, the weather actually plays a big role in that.
Yeah.
Very interesting, actually, and I think it came from that as well. Yeah.
And so I think that everyone in the world has got something to teach each other, that there's no real one particular country that's victims and no particular country that's victorious either. We've all got our problems and we've all got our strengths and skills, and we can all help each other out. There's no one that's better than another person, and in fact it was that point of view that made me so ashamed when I was in Africa, because I'm like, wow, I was just so wrong, and everything that I was led to believe is just so just doesn't match what I was seeing and hearing with, by being there. And so travel, if I imagine that if everyone had the same access to the whole world as each other, and we could all travel, and there was that equality, so like no barriers between countries, no countries, everyone just being one race together, because we are one race, one human race, and sharing what we have so that we can really progress together. As you said before, taking the best of what everyone does, and just stopping this whole judgment thing of who's better, who's better than the other countries. It's just not true. We've all got our issues, and that's what I found in going to Africa as well. I thought, I got back and thought, really, I just need to look into a mirror, because there's plenty of things that are wrong with what's going on around me and with me that I need to be focusing on, not on what I can fix in other people.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I actually think that boundaries are more driven by economics than the social aspect of it. Because, say, for example, if everyone was economically on the same level, there would be no reason to actually close up the borders. The reason why Africans need visas to go to Europe is it's economics. Because the Europeans are scared that Africans are going to come and they don't want to go back. And it happens. Yes, it's economics. So once you have some sort of a level of stability in terms of economics, where people are more than happy to live in their countries of birth, then I think there's a big chance that borders could actually easily open. Because look at Europe, the borders are open there for everyone. The EU actually allows you, I can go, if you're German, you can go to Holland, with the driver's license. It's economics. Because the Dutch guy doesn't necessarily want to go and live in Germany, he's happy in Holland. The English guy doesn't necessarily want to go and live in Switzerland, he's happy in England. It's economics. And I think from an economics point of view, if that is sorted out, which is, in a way, a long way off, then I think you can see borders opening. But you know what? Interestingly, I actually don't think it's actually a long way off, because when you look at the way things are progressing now, they're progressing much faster than they were, say, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think because of technology. Talking to a friend, I think the day before yesterday, was saying, what? About half the jobs that our kids are going to be doing in the next generation, the next, say, 20, 30 years, those jobs don't exist today.
Yeah, we have no idea what that will be. Yeah.
No idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
So imagine that world. So in 10, 20 years time, things could be really different.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
We
even
can see with
economic,
technology, just in the last 5
yeah,
years, how much it's
how
changed.
much has changed. Exactly.
I've got this computer
So,
now, and it's about as thin as this phone. The computer and it's a whole computer on my desktop. And the screen is
huh?
the computer. Yeah, it's the new iMac,
Wow.
and
Yeah, yeah. It's everything.
it's just changing so fast, and that we can have access. Yeah, there's so much happening, and I think the same. I think that we're not so far off a real globalization, because it's just becoming more and more apparent that governments are trying to stick to the old ways that aren't really working. We've got all of this online world now. Everyone has access to each other. Everyone can trade with each other, and the governments are still trying to make it like it was before. Like in Australia, they're trying to figure out how they can put tax on online trading, so that they can have it like old style Australian trading.
We're talking about technology in terms of also, you know, we don't know where we're going in the next 5, 10 years. You can actually you can't predict the future, really. And for me, the interesting concept would be if you have kids in a classroom that can collaborate with kids in a classroom in Australia, in Asia, where you can do teleconferencing education. My kid goes to school today, and he comes back and he tells me, yeah, no, we had this interesting concept we're sharing with these American kids, and we're sharing with Australian. It becomes one, and I see it going that way.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the most interesting thing about what's coming up in terms of technology and what we can do with it. I think technology for technology's sake is pointless, but it's how we use it.
Yeah.
And for me, those things, and there's just so much more. It's exciting, actually.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was saying she's very scared for her daughter because, you know, everything is becoming technology. Just said, no, it's actually quite exciting because, trust me, what you're doing now is going to be redundant in the next 10 years, but the kids will find their own way. They live in a different world from you. They will be fine, you know, and that's what's exciting for me. And I think that's what's going to change things for everybody, regardless of where you are, whether you're in Africa or Australia or America. I think it's just, everything is just going to become one. And you know, we take the best of each other and learn from each other that way. It's actually, I'm excited about this, to be honest with you.
It will be amazing. Yeah. I mean, and I see it happening already, you know. I work solely online, really. I hardly ever work in person, person to person with people, unless it's on Skype or online. And because of that, the people that I'm working with, doing all kinds of things, and, you know, I can be working with people all over the world at the same time in my webinars, and it's incredible the things that are possible, and collaborating as well. Like I'm going to be doing more of these interviews too, collaborating with people all over the world and just like discussing things and sharing views, and who knows what's going to come out of it, you know, when we get minds together like that can share the best of what they're doing and share ideas and help each other properly.
Who knows?
I've had
for me, I think this is a great platform in terms of
I've had this view of charity since I've done charity work, and can see the negative side of charity. Of course, see benefits of it as well, but there's so much charity around now, and it doesn't really seem to be working that well.
No, it never works.
I think there's a much better model that we can use to help each other on the level instead of in that kind of a way. And I know that lots of people in the Western world have this real conscience about you should be doing charity work, that you should be, it's seen as giving back, but the charity work is seen as the only way to give back, whereas I kind of see it as the worst way to give back. And I find that what I'm actually doing in my work is giving back. You know, when I'm giving value to people and when I'm helping people and really making a difference in people's lives, that's the kind of giving back that I do the best. And, you know, you do a different kind of giving back the best in your way. And if we all just did that, then there would be no reason for charities. Just allow people to do what they do best.
Yes, it's not about money. You cannot give someone money and expect that they're gonna, it's gonna solve all their problems. It's impossible. And I think what you do, the work that you do, for me, is a very good example. People come to you, you help them in terms of, this is what you need to do. Perhaps look at it this way, in collaboration. And for me, that's helping. That's not charity. That's empowering someone. There's a huge difference, because from that moment on, once they're empowered, they are a better life. They can impact positively other people as well, and on and on and on it goes. Whereas if you just say, there's money, go buy this tomorrow, when that money is used up, then what? You know what I mean? For me, it's actually simple logic, common sense.
And for me, that's
money
the
is not going to solve a
exciting
problem.
thing. That's the exciting thing about being an entrepreneur, is because you can develop a business and it can be exactly what you want it to be. And so like mine, I have lots of different levels. There's free help, I send out emails with help in every week, and I get lots of positive feedback from that, from people saying that I'm really helping with that. I do these free videos as well, and a weekly video, and people get that free help. And then there's another level where people can pay just a little bit and get access to my teachings. And then there's another level where they can get more one-on-one help with me. And it means that it's just available. You can, as an entrepreneur, you can make your work available to everybody. Yeah.
And we are all entrepreneurs, Claire, in terms of you can actually do exactly what you want in life.
Yeah.
We are creators. We can create anything. But I think for me, it's again, it goes back to empowering people. Some people haven't realized that yet. So then you let fear rule, and you don't do what you want to do because you're scared. And we all scared in a way. But I suppose it's overcoming that and saying, let me just try it. Let me just do it.
So how did you break free of that fear then, from your job to being an entrepreneur yourself?
I think for me it was an inner calling, really. It got to a point where I realized I wasn't happy. But life is very interesting, because certain things begin to happen in your life that kind of push you in a certain direction. You can either resist and just continue on the path, or take a step back and listen and say, you know what, I think life is trying to show me something. Let me try it. And I think that's exactly what happened with me. It got to a point where certain things were happening where I was working, where I wasn't getting along with the boss. I was not happy going to work. Monday to Friday, I would dread just waking up to go. I wasn't enjoying working with the people I was working with. It really was difficult for me. Then it got to a point where I just decided, you know what, I think it's time to pack my bags and go. A very scary moment. Yes, it was a scary moment, but I did it anyway. I spoke to my wife. I told my wife, this is it. You can see I'm not happy. I'm not getting along with these people at work. I've got these opportunities in front of me. Let's try this. It's I know I have to feed the kids and stuff, but just trust me. Let's do it. I haven't gone back, and I haven't looked back, and I can tell you now, Clay, I'm a happy person, waking up every morning, every day.
Yeah, correct.
I'm there for my kids. I fetch my kids from school every day. I'm there for them whenever they need me. I mean, I'm not tied the way I was tied. But also I'm getting more job satisfaction from what I do. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the long and short of it.
Fantastic. So you've probably got more to teach.
Same as you.
In that respect, to many people that are in Western world that are still doing things that they're not really happy doing and haven't broken free of that yet. So thank you so much. That was really interesting, and I hope it's been useful for everyone that's been listening as well. Thanks for joining us today.